So today we're going to be doing something a bit different from what we normally do. I know we've been building on regression analyses after testing multiple dual indicator strategies, and we're going to start building on top of those really soon. But today I was going to add a bit of knowledge to the Sharp Research Discord, and I thought that while I was making the strategy, I thought some people might be interested in seeing it on YouTube as well. So I can make this public, that's no problem. So, for those of you who don't know or are just following along with the YouTube videos and aren't super familiar with my work, my trading strategy is going to be what I'm quoting today. It follows the outputs of an artificial intelligence model that I made when I was working at an investment banking position. My job was to provide investment opportunities to analysts for those analysts to conduct further research themselves before presenting it to a greater board. So my job was to find those opportunities quantitatively before they validated them fundamentally, is a quick way of saying it. So I wanted to, when I was working there, come up with a more effective way of screening for those opportunities because I thought that what was going on was a little bit rudimentary, and I at the time was super interested in artificial intelligence. So I came up with a model that leveraged artificial intelligence to conduct that screening process. So the opportunities were already based on an abundance of data that would suggest they would do well before ever having to make a claim yourself. And my boss actually didn't like it at all. He thought, oh, well, artificial intelligence has been around for, 30, 40 years. They've been trying to do this forever. I don't think you've done it. And, that was hard to hear. But I kept doing it after I ended up leaving that firm. I didn't really like the culture there at all. I ended up leaving. And I kept building on this model for a couple months, almost a year. And eventually I got it figured out really well. It works extremely well now. And on October 2023, I started using it for my own investments. And this is going to be a quick video showing you pretty much my exact strategy since launching it. All of the ratings generated by the model since October 2023 are in this file here in the top corner, predictions database. So I'm going to be showing you the performance of the top 10 stocks each quarter, which creates a diversified portfolio each quarter, and how that compares to the S&P 500. And the reason I'm making this video is to show to the members of the Sharp community like how I can calculate potential strategies with the outputs of the model. And I know that you might not be following along with the outputs of the model, so it might not be super interesting to you. But if you're just curious or you like watching how the quantitative process is performed using Python, or if you want to see the exact returns that I've gotten since the model started, just follow along. This video shouldn't be too long. You might find it interesting. You never know. So we're going to get started out by just naming the sheet predictions as a global variable. And that's it. Predictions database.xlsx. We have our functions loaded in, pandas, matplotlib, and Yahoo Finance to get all of the information we need for this strategy plot. So we're going to define a function of getting top n performance, and we're going to globally define how many we want to see. N top, number of top ratings is going to start off as 10. Top tickers equals n. I think that's a good name for it. N top. So when we change this global variable at the top, the values of our function will change. And then the sheets are going to be what are within this file. So file is going to be pandas.excel file, and it's going to be predictions is the path, because we just have it stored directly in this folder, I think. And then sheets is going to be the file.sheet name. File.sheet names. Great. So now we have the file and all of the sheets. And I named the sheets to be just the start day of the quarter. So quarter 1, 2025 would be named 2024-12/31. So the last day of 2024 will be the start of 2025. And now we want to loop through each of these sheets to get information on share price performances. So we do a for loop for S in sheets. We want to print let's just print the sheet name, print S. And I'm going to return it just to make sure we're doing everything right so far. Top and performance. Great. So when we loop through this Excel file, we have our 7 quarters of documented SharpEdge performance. And in each of these quarters are going to be a long list of ratings. Like when I first started out, there were only about 300 or 400, but now we're getting about 700 to 800 ratings every quarter. But I'm only interested in the top 10 each time because that's what I've been following, and end top is going to be 10. So I want to start calculating the top 10 stocks in each of these quarters, taking their cumulative performance and then comparing that to the S&P 500, which is essentially the global benchmark, what you want to be comparing your investments to. Great. So within each of these sheets, the data frame is going to be pandas.readExcel, read Excel, and file, of which we've already defined, and the sheet name is going to be S, which we are currently focused on in our loop. Then the top 10 is going to be the data frame head. So top 10 equals data frame head. And you can, this is by default 5, but we're going to change it to be end top. End top. Great. So we also need to define the start and end of each quarter, so we can only take the performance of those stocks for that specific quarter. You don't want to just get performances since then up until today, because that's not how my strategy works. I don't hold them indefinitely. I hold them until they get a bad rating. So for the purposes of this study, I'm just going to be saying we're holding them throughout the course of the quarter and then selling at the end every single time. So start is included in the name. It's included in the spreadsheet data, which I do not want to show you because this is proprietary information. I could theoretically show these ones all because they're published for free on the website. But for now, I'm just going to try and do this without showing any of the actual information. So the start is actually just going to be the pandas to date time, top 10. And the reason I know a lot of these functions off the rip is because I've been working with this spreadsheet a lot, and I know everything about it. There would probably be a lot more errors if I was not familiar with this spreadsheet, or I had to show you, or I had to show myself what is happening in each step. But for me, I'm super comfortable with this, so I just know that the start date is always going to be this line, and I know that the end date is also going to be this line, except with a little bit of an adjustment. End is going to be this one here, period end, because we have 2 columns, one for the start and one for the end in each of the sheets. Actually print that out too. Print start end. Yeah. So we have the start date, which is the name of the sheet. And then the start time is same name as the sheet, and the end is the 3 months afterwards. So now in each of these quarters, we're going to be taking stock price information over the course of these 3 months. Excellent. That's exactly what we want so far. I'm going to get rid of this print statement because we don't need it. So for the last quarter, the end is going to be in the future. We have not seen this date yet, but it is coming up soon, 2 weeks. And I need to do this same little modification that happens every time. So if the end date is greater than date time, oh, I forgot to import date time. Import date time as DT. Here we go. Run that. So if end is greater than datetime dot now, yes, then end is going to equal dt.datetime now. And this is a common notation when you're working with time series data. You will see that a lot, much like reshaping and all of those other things. Sometimes you just get used to common groups of code or small snippets. Price changes is going to equal what we want before calculating the cumulative returns. In order to calculate the cumulative returns, I first want to get the raw price change data from each quarter. You can't calculate cumulative returns each quarter and then concatenate those. It'll start at 0 each time and the chart will be wrong. So first you have to get the raw price changes and then stack those all on top of each other and then take the cumulative returns of all of those price changes at the end, as though they were one stock, as opposed to 4 distinct quarters, which they actually are. So price changes is what we're going to name this first data frame with just raw price information, pd.dataframe. And that's going to be an empty data frame, which is exactly what we want. Great. But for every quarter, we're going to be filling in this data frame with those 10 stocks average returns. Because now we have the top 10 data frame, and we want to take some information from each of the tickers in that top 10 data frame. And I know that we have a column named ticker, which shows you each of those stocks we have available. So what we're going to be looping through these top 10 in each sheet. So for sheet in sheets, we do some functions, and then within that sheet, we run for t in ticker. T in top 10. Top 10, and then ticker. Yes, so we're going to be looping through each of the items in this column of our parsed data frame. Prices are going to equal Yahoo Finance.download, the same thing we always do, and then ticker. Start is going to equal the start date, and end is going to equal the end date. Perfect. And I only want close. I only want the close prices. I don't want the whole data frame that comes with it, because I'm only making a plot. I don't need a lot of information here. And then the returns, which I mentioned, are going to be those raw price change information, pieces of information. So returns are going to equal prices dot percent change, which is a function built into pandas, dot fill NA. Perfect. And then price changes which is the data frame we have defined as empty ticker T, which is the specific ticker we're using, is going to equal the returns. Okay, this is a lot going on right now. So for each quarter, we're establishing the start and end date as values that are already embedded in the spreadsheet. We're only taking the top certain amount of stocks each quarter, and that's going to be 10, which we've defined at the very top of our function. And then we're defining an empty price changes data frame at the start of each quarter, and then concatenating it each time. So for the ticker in the top 10, which is changed each quarter, we're going to download each of those tickers' share prices, close prices specifically. Then we're going to take their percent changes and fill the NA values with 0. It's the same thing as default, I believe, but I'm just going to put in the 0 to be sure. And then the price changes column, we're going to make a new column in this data frame with the name of the ticker that we've selected, and it's going to be this price change information. So far, that's a lot going on, but I think it'll make better sense when we start printing everything out. Okay, I'm actually going to show everything up until the last quarter, so I can show you guys what's going on. I'm going to print price changes, and that should show you head. It should show you a data frame with the names of the top 10 tickers each quarter and their price changes, daily price changes every day. So what's going on? We're getting 10 stocks price information, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we are adding that to the data frame, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. And these are the top 10 stocks each quarter. And we repeat this process every quarter before we perform our calculation. And I could also just create a plot with this information right now, but I don't want to quite yet. I also want to get the S&P 500 data to show you guys the exact exactly how impressive I think this model is. So now we want to do average top 10 is going to be the price changes average, or mean is the pandas version, and the axis is going to be along the columns. If its axis is 0, it's along the rows, and axis 1 is along the columns. If you're not too familiar with the Python notation for rows versus columns, that's okay. You will learn it as you continue using Python for data science. That's axis equals 1 is pretty much just saying you're taking an average across the columns. Now, we want the S&P 500, or I'm just going to call it SPY, to be yf.download. Ticker is SPY always. That's our benchmark. Start is the same thing. Start equals start. End equals end. And I also only want the close prices, just like our tickers. And then it's the same thing. Prices, returns, and I could almost copy this in, but I'm just going to do SPY prices equals yf.download SPY. No, I already have that. SPY prices equals SPY.percent change, like we have at the top there. Dot fill NA with a 0, and then price changes. Nope. SPY price changes. No, SPY returns equals SPY prices dot reindex and we want to change this to be the average top 10 index so we can concatenate them or append them together with no issues. Dot index. So I'm making the S&P 500 returns index the same as our average top 500 index, so we can blend them together. And then fill NA again with 0. And all should be pretty good there. Get benchmark data. Initialize empty data frame. And then one more step here is we're going to mesh these two data frames that we have together. So we have the average top 10 and we have the average top 10 prices and we have the S&P 500 prices for each quarter. And what we want to do is add these to a really big data frame. And the way I'm going to set this data frame up is by creating a list at the top of this function. So before we even start looping through all these sheets, we want all top 10 returns. And that's just going to be a list, an empty list at first, and then all SPY returns are also going to be a list. List. Perfect. Now that we have those initialized and we have everything calculated, I'm just going to append every piece of information we get here to those those lists we have at the top of this function. So all top 10 returns is going to append the average top 10. And then all SPY returns is going to append the SPY returns. This is going to be SPY prices. That was close. I'm glad this color was different so I could notice what was going on. And it should be all good. I'm going to print out the length of all top 10. All SPY. And the length of all SPY returns with each loop. So if this is working correctly, these will get longer each time. Like 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Okay, so it's the length of how many data frames, not the length of the rows, but they're adding data frames each quarter up to 6 because I didn't include the last quarter, so this is good. This doesn't do exactly what I expected it to, but it does what I needed it to. Monster energy. Okay. Now, we need to make these come together. Once all of the information is taken from this for loop that goes through each of the 10 quarters, we just need to put everything together so we can plot it nice and cleanly. So the full top 10 is going to equal pd.concat, pandas.concatenate, and all top 10 returns. And the full S&P 500 is going to be the same thing. Full SPY is going to be pandas.concat. All SPY returns. Perfect. And then the cumulative top 10 is what we are actually interested in. So now that we have a data frame created from the S&P 500 and the top 10 stocks, I want to make a plot of these. So first, we need to do cumulative top 10 equals the same function we use in all of our strategies, 1 plus full top 10 dot cumprod, which is a numpy function, minus 1, and we do the same thing for S&P 500. SPY, full SPY, and cumulative SPY equals that. And now we want to plot these two functions. And if I've done everything right, I think this is a very clean function. I like how this looks. plt.plot, and before I make it beautiful, I just want it's plt. I just want to see if the plot does what I want it to do in the first place. So plt.plot com top 10 and plt.plot cumulative SPY. I'm going to get rid of these the progress notations in Yahoo Finance. So that's the first 6 quarters. I'm going to make it 7. Let's do every single one of them. So for sheet in sheets, and I'm going to turn off progress. Progress equals false. And do the same thing for the S&P 500. Progress equals false. And I'm also going to make our print statement here nice and friendly. Acquiring data for S. And make that an F string so S works. Acquiring data for that. Great. So now we're loading in Yahoo Finance data for each of the quarters, and what we should see is a nice clean plot that compares our top 10 cumulative returns to the S&P 500 index, and it does. I'm going to add a legend so you know which one is which. plt.legend top 10 SharpEdge top 10 and S&P 500. Ah, shit. Well, that's a shame. We got to do that every single time. But that's it. I might make this figure a little bit larger and run this function one more time to show you guys. plt.figure. And let's see. Let's make this really big. So 12 by 6. I think default it's 6 by 4. this is going to be double that. So our index will look really nice. I could also add grid lines, but I think it looks cleaner without them. And you guys will get the idea just because of the axes labels. So one more run through and I'll explain what we're looking at. Must be iterable. What's going on here? plt.figure, and I forgot to make this fig size. It's 12. So here we have it. This is a lot of people ask me what my returns have been or how much money I make trading stocks. And this is a really good representation of that. I'm about 80% up since I started trading, or since I started following this model about 2 years ago. And the S&P 500 in the same amount of time is up about 40%. So I've been doubling the S&P 500 since I started following this model, and according to test results, I think it'll keep going. These are studies that I do post in the Sharp Discord server, and there's a lot of different ways you can use the outputs. So right now we've just followed the top 10, but what you can also do, theoretically, and what I'll be testing in that server at a later date, is what would happen if you not only went long on the top 10, but also short on the bottom 10. Like, would your returns be exaggerated if you did that over a long period of time? So that's just an example off the top of my head. There's an unlimited number of ways you can use the model to gain an edge, but I just keep mine nice and simple because that's all I need. These are my exact returns. This is what everybody can see, and I'm going to keep posting them live on the Sharp Research website. If suddenly these ratings start doing really badly, that will be public information. I'm not hiding anything, I'm really not hiding anything at all. The stock ratings are published every quarter. Like, you can see the old ones, and I just follow the new ones, updated each quarter. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed watching what was a bit longer than I expected it to be, the process of me calculating my portfolio returns and visualizing them over time. I know this is not exactly what we usually do on this channel, but maybe you found it interesting. If you've watched this long, leave a comment. Remember to like, and I look forward to seeing you next time when we start building more complicated regression analyses. Thank you so much for following along. I appreciate your support. And until next time, stay sharp.